Peter Atkins recently retired as Professor of Chemistry at the University of Oxford. He's written a huge number of textbooks, which are the standard in the business, but also some wonderful popular books, one of which was called Galileo's Finger, and the most recent one was The Four Laws, and he's about to address us on Pride and Prejudice. Right?
Yeah.
Good. Right. Peter Atkins.
It's really is a great pleasure to be back here. It's been very stimulating, most interesting, and it's wonderful to meet so many people from different backgrounds. Like Walter, I also do what I'm told. And so I will present you with a candle. But I also had to please Roger, who's got this thing about the second law. And he gets off on the second law and entropy. And,
no, this is a conversation I had with Rob Zepps once when we were talking about all those people coming up with beliefs and so on. And Eddington made this remark, which Rob sent to me, which is you can run these beliefs that you have and these views and opinions by all sorts of things. Even Maxwell equations could be a bit iffy in certain circumstances. But the second law, now there is a test. If you can get your stuff through the second law, it works. If not, then you crumble.
Right. So my challenge was to combine a candle with the second law.
Yes.
In order to please everyone.
An entropic, never-ending candle.
Yeah. So what I've done is actually I've chosen a candle, which is, as you see, burning at both ends. I might mention, of course, that I'm only here as cabaret this evening. It's unusual to have cabaret just before dinner, but it was going to be cabaret last night, but then I was dropped. And so it's going to be cabaret before dinner this evening. But what you see is the candle that I've chosen, and it's one flame really gives forth light, and the other gives out darkness. So it's a kind of Janus candle, and this candle, in my view, represents prejudice. Prejudice might seem to be a funny choice and something admirable, but I shall argue that appropriately employed, it's an excellent device for exercising rationality. There is, of course, darkly deep bad prejudice, which shuts our minds and inhibits our aspirations, and that is easy to identify, and I can dismiss it fairly quickly. But the former variety, the good sort of prejudice, is what I want to talk about as well, and that's the kind of prejudice in which we can take pride. So first, bad, nasty, rotten prejudice, the sort of candle glow that spreads darkness, kind of anti-candle, I suppose. I mean religious prejudice, and the presumption that human minds are simply too puny to achieve ultimate understanding. The presumption that any explanation will necessarily be beyond our comprehension. In other words, religious prejudice sort of despises the power of human understanding. This is the sort of prejudice that we've got to be on our guard against in public policy. Then, of course, there's good prejudice, the prejudice that spreads light into otherwise dark domains, the prejudice that the scientific method is the only road to true comprehension, and through comprehension, guarded toleration. So scientific prejudice is flexible prejudice, not rigid prejudice. And all we scientists have prejudices in the sense that although we're revolutionaries, we're conservative revolutionaries. We base our attacks on ignorance, on the bridgeheads of established science, for we favor the reliability of the seemingly established. But unlike the prejudice of religion, we're content to discard our prejudices when the experimental evidence, by which I mean sort of publicly accessible, testable evidence, is overwhelming. Max Planck got it right when he said that experiment is the only true way of understanding, and the rest is imagination. We should demonstrate the superiority of our prejudice by presenting evidence in support of opinion, and by showing doubters that modern science is a reticulation of understanding, where elementary particle physics informs cosmic physics, where chemistry informs biology, and so on. And science doesn't consist of little warring tribes of independent knowledge. It consists of sort of great rivers of knowledge that enhance each other where they mingle. That supportive intermingling is a sign that we are correct in our prejudice in favor of science. We should have, and we should display, and we should broadcast our confidence in this extraordinary product of the human mind, and stand sort of foursquare with the confidence in our science. In that way, we'll display the majesty of this extraordinary, wonderful world. So prejudice is good in science, for revolutions should not be accepted without a fight. Unlike new religions, new scientific conceptions of the world are not accepted on a whim. New paradigms of understanding have to struggle for public acceptance. They have to show that they are superior models of understanding. Although they must show that they displace the concepts of the past, they must also show how those concepts are in fact an approximation that has been improved upon, not merely concepts that were silly in the first place. So my prejudice in favor of the scientific method is based on really a variety of foundations, that science works, that although there are many springs of scientific knowledge, they're mutually supportive, not at each other's throats, and so on, that they're detached from sentiment, but also inspire glorious pleasure when a discovery is made and a hypothesis confirmed, and that they're open to public scrutiny, not relying on sentimental wishful thinking and self-delusion, and that in many cases they lead to verifiable prediction. Now, the prejudice that established concepts hold the high ground, and that the young aspirant stag of concepts must fight off the old king stag in fair combat, is central to the scientific endeavor. What are the great prejudices of the past that have acted as rocks on which to build progress? So Aristotle is a tough nut to place, because he was